Welcome back to Bespoke Addict. I've spent about a month working and preparing these absolutely sensational 1786 Russian Reindeer by George Cleverley. When they came to me, they were lovely, but they were neglected. They just hadn't been treated. The skins hadn't had any nourishment, and quite a bit of the stitching was starting to fail. I can't remember. All across the front here has been restitched. Thankfully, you can't see any evidence of that. Bit of a devil. And these little anchor loops here had failed. And where are we? Yeah, some of this had failed. But they do look spectacular, and it's taken the best part of a month to nourish them and moisturise the skins. And they look extraordinarily shiny, which is unusual on this skin. They haven't been polished. There's no polish on these skins. Even though they look polished to death, I promise you they're not. All I've done is nourish them with the regular creams and buff them between coats. Dry buff it, and I dry buff, and then re-nourish it, let it dry, and dry buff again. But they've just came up so well. It's an amazing skin. The skin itself is 250 years old. The shoes were made by George Cleverley in 1991. Yeah, it was 1991. But the skin itself was tanned in Russia in the 1780s. It was transported on the Danish ship, the Mette Katarina, and I believe the ship was due to come round the south coast of England and up the Thames estuary to London. But it got into difficulty in a storm off the coast of Portsmouth, and it sank. And it went to the bottom of the ocean with the skins and its other cargo. I do believe there was no loss of life. I think all of the crew managed to swim ashore, and there it stayed for 187 years at the bottom of the sea with these skins on board, all wrapped up in an oilskin. It's weird stuff. It's got this cross hatching. You see the sort of crisscross diamond shapes. That was done by hand by the tanners. I believe they were in St. Petersburg. But all of the scarring and the wrinkly texture, that's been done by the water. But divers discovered this wreck after it had been left undisturbed for 187 years. They discovered it in 1973. And with the permission of Prince Charles, who was the Duchy of Cornwall at the time. He's now the King, obviously King Charles. But when he was Prince Charles in the early 70s, he was the Duchy of Cornwall. It was the wreck appeared in Duchy territory, so he gave permission to recover. And then obviously they had this skin, and he gave the permission to sell the skin. George Cleverley bought the skin, but part of the deal was that Prince Charles at the time would have the very first pair of their shoes made from this skin, and he still wears them today. He was photographed about 3 or 4 years ago on a tour of the Caribbean. He was standing with Lionel Richie, and he was wearing his shoes, which are very, very similar to these, and they're just a bit redder than this. Now, I've nourished these with like a pale yellowy sort of cream, and I've also nourished it with black, and the black has sort of highlighted the texture. It's given it a very sort of deep sort of luster. Of course they're not black, they look kind of a concrete colour, but it's a combination of like a yellow cream and a black, alternating them, and that's what's given the skins this intense sort of antique sort of look. But, couldn't be happy with them, and they are ready to be laced up. I just need to find a perfect pair of laces in the perfect colour, and I'm going to start wearing these because they are ready to be worn. But as I say to you, I really couldn't be happier with them. I think one of the heel socks is not glued down. Yeah, it's this one. I just need to get the correct adhesive and glue that down. But even the heel socks, the 1786 Russian Reindeer, as is the lining all around here, that's the same skin. Truly remarkable. I did mention before, these shoes were a kind gift to the original owner, who was a film producer and an agent in Hollywood, Sir Peter Rawley. And they were a gift from one of his client actors, which is actually Now then, Richard Dreyfuss, forgive me stumbling there, Richard Dreyfuss, these were a gift. George Cleverley had Peter Rowley's last, and He knew he made many pairs before for Peter, and the actor, I keep forgetting his name here live on camera, Richard Dreyfuss, went in and spoke to George and said, look, I want you to make a pair for Peter in this skin. And they were a gift. And Peter since died, and his wife sold these shoes. And she remembers very clearly when Richard Dreyfuss gifted Peter these shoes, and he was thrilled. But he enjoyed wearing them, but to be honest, I don't think he really looked after them. He didn't abuse them, but he didn't give them any treatment. And if you look at previous videos on these shoes, you'll notice the skin was very dry, and there'd been no nourishment, nothing. He'd just worn them, and that was it. So he's had a new heel put on. That's not George's heel cover. That's a replacement, but this is all totally original. All the heel stacks original, but yeah, that's definitely not an original George heel. It's decent, but it's not. They would originally have one of these. These are Phillips specials, and that's a sepia, like a brown instead of black. And I've got loads of these, so I could easily change them for an original style. But I'm going to wear them, to be honest with you. Do a bit more wear to this heel, then pull it off and replace it with a set of Phillips specials. Right. That's it. I'm not going to bring these to camera again until they're on my feet, but I couldn't be happier with the results. They're just utterly stunning, and even though they do look polished to death, I promise you they're not. There's no polish on these. It's just purely dry buffed, well nourished skin.